Well, what do you get when you take a trained wrestler, an emergency department supervisor, a devoted dad, and a political candidate? You get the guest on today's edition of Be Inspired. Hi again, everybody. I'm Bert Baron.
And I'm Lisa Anderson.
And we welcome you to Be Inspired. This is the series where we bring you real stories from folks just like you and I who are here to share stories of love and loss, struggles and perseverance, laughter and tears, and so much more. Be Inspired is made possible by Photo Center in Brick, Mike Obertlich from Keller Williams in Shrewsbury. Lisa, I don't think we've had someone as a guest on the program that has had just such an incredible life experience. And our guest who's with us here today, Michael Skudera, is here. And Michael, welcome to Be Inspired. Where do we start with your story? You've had such a life where you've seen so many different things. I'm guessing, is being a dad, is that the most important thing to you?
Yeah, number one, being a father to my 14-year-old son, Ezra. I've always wanted to be three things in life. I wanted to be a professional wrestler, I wanted to be a father, and I wanted to be my mom. And I was able to pretty much accomplish the first two. The third one, the jury's still out.
Well, listen, when you first meet you, you're such a quiet, unassuming guy that you would not picture you doing, all that you've done. And I really enjoyed reading your story and the way you write. You're also a very good writer.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Have you thought about writing?
I have.
Yeah, because the way you write, it made me feel as if I knew you. It read like a really nice story, like I wanted to find out more. So
thank you.
Really happy to hear that.
My mother's a writer, so that's kind of where I kind of...
See?
Yeah,
you are on the journey
trying,
to being like your mom. Yeah. How are things at the emergency? Now, what do you do in the emergency?
So I'm a supervisor of access services. So that's the registration team. We collect all the demographic information, the insurance information. So it's very busy. We usually see between 250 and 300 patients a day. We only have 55 beds in the emergency department.
Where is this at?
At Jersey Shore University Medical
okay.
Center.
All
Yeah,
right.
I've been there 16 years as of last month.
Wow.
And again, my mom was there 30 before she retired, so she kind of got me in there, and I got 14 more years to go to catch her. But
yeah, my mom was the head of the emergency department in Elizabeth for 25 years. So yeah, back in the day when crazy stories she could tell you too. So it sounds like an interesting job.
We can write a book.
Yeah. See?
Yeah.
There you go.
Just on the ED alone. Yeah.
How did the wrestling come into it?
I've always liked professional wrestling. I saw it probably for the first time when I was 7 or 8 years old, and I'm 43 now, and I still watch it. I watched probably 16 hours of wrestling this weekend. It's WrestleMania weekend, so...
it was some big awards, right?
Yeah, the Hall of Fame was on Saturday, and there was a show I went to at the Garden on Saturday as well. So I always wanted to be a professional wrestler, and I would send away for information on if there's any schools in the area, and there really wasn't. The only school that was close was IWF, which was in West Patterson. So I would take the drive up there, and you think professional wrestling is one thing on TV, and when you get thrown on your back for the first time and the wind's knocked out of you, you're like, what am I doing here?
Why am I here? Exactly.
Yeah.
You'll wind up where you are now in the emergency department.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's crazy.
A longtime fan myself. Roddy Piper was my guy growing up.
Roddy.
So we know what that's about.
Yeah.
They say when you work in the hospital system, Michael, you see people at their absolute worst. And it's a moment that you bring people back from their absolute worst moments. But a lot of times people will come back and say, you know what, thank you for being there for me and thank you for helping me. Do you see a lot of, I guess it's people that are coming back to the hospital to thank the people that saved their lives in their worst moment?
Sure. People bring in food. We can't pass up food in the ED. They'll bring in cookies and pies and cakes and pizzas and stuff like that.
We never get that.
Yeah. We have a pretty good relationship with our community. Before I became a supervisor, I was just an ordinary registrar, and this one woman came into the hospital. I was working in outpatient at the time, and she had a really thick Spanish accent. I could barely understand her, but I knew she had breast cancer, and she was all by herself. She had nobody with her. She had never married, never any children. She was literally by herself. She was from South America. And all I said to her was, you got to have a little faith. And she started to cry. And from that point on, we became, like family. We would spend Christmases together, Thanksgivings together. When she ended up losing her battle with cancer, she had me as her emergency contact, which kind of blew my mind. So I
That's
think
a
about her
wonderful
often. Yeah,
story.
Mrs. Martinez.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good. You're a really great person to do that
Oh,
and
thank
to
you.
welcome her.
She was awesome.
And see that
Yeah.
people cross your paths for a reason.
You
and-
have no idea why.
Yeah.
You have no idea why.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible story. And, the story you wrote about politics, I don't picture that either, but it's an interesting story. I could see how you really want to stay involved in your community. And the fact that your son helped you go door to door. Tell us about that time in your life when you ran for council.
Yeah, so it kind of happened by accident. I mean, I've always been interested in politics. I always have been the kind of person that when the State of the Union is on, I will just be glued to the TV because I love it when the Sergeant of Arms comes and says, "Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States." And it's like, wow, this is what it's all about. And I happened to go back to school. I go to Drexel University, kind of a little late in life, but
all right.
I had a different path. When I graduated high school, I just went right to work. I just wanted to work. I didn't really, school wasn't for me, it wasn't in the cards
Sure.
for me at that time. So, the hospital was paying for my education. And my first class that I had was a political science class. And one of the assignments was to go to your local council meeting and kind of, write about your experience there. And I just so happened to be at the council meeting where they were replacing one council member who quit with another one. So they had 3 people that were vying for the position, and then they would interview each person. And at that point, I was kind of hooked. I was like, wow, this is really cool. And then at that point, I started going to more meetings. And then I was eventually approached by one of the local parties to run for mayor. And I was like, wait a minute, there's no way I could run for mayor. I'm not even on the council. I have no
Mayor
education.
Mike.
Yeah. And so I said, no, thank you to that. And a few weeks later, they came to me and said, well, what about town council? And I said, well, town council is probably something I could handle. I'm in. So then you start doing the primaries. You have to get on the ballot for the primaries and get signatures to get on the primary. And that stuff is kind of easy. But come September, it's usually like the day after Labor Day. From that day on till Election Day is nonstop.
Very intense. It could
very,
be kind
very
of
intense.
a life-consuming thing.
Sure can.
What did being in politics teach you about life?
Wow. Politics is a nasty business. It really is. For somebody like me who's lived in my town for over 30 years, you'd think that, Mike is, he has the best interests of the town. He's been here forever. Everybody knows I used to, I coached basketball in town and baseball. It didn't matter. It mattered what your party affiliation was, and that was, kind of how it went.
It could be nasty, but I believe you were in it for the right reasons.
Yeah.
Your campaign was tough. Tell us
Yes.
about that.
It was tough. I was, running against a 16-year incumbent, which, is tough to begin with.
Sure.
And I didn't know what I was doing. I had no clue what I was doing. You hear
Most
about
people don't.
No, you hear about people going, door to door, and the first door I knocked on, I was scared to death.
Sure.
Because you don't know what they're going to say. You don't know if they're going to come open the door with a gun and say, "Get off my property." You have no idea. And then once you start breaking, down and go to each door, it gets easier. People start inviting you in. They start offering you food and drinks, and they want to set up some kind of like a neighborhood meeting to have their friends meet you, and so that was a lot of fun. And I think the most fun for me was having my son involved, because at the time he was 10 years old, and my son is probably the most fearless person I've ever met.
Good for him.
He just, when he was 4 years old, he wanted an action figure, and he would go to the store and it wasn't there. He would go to the manager at 4 and say, "Do you have any more of these in the back?" That's the kind of kid
I
he
need
is.
to hang out with him.
Yeah, he really is amazing, and he would go door to door with me, and he'd make hundreds of phone calls at 10 years old.
Good for him.
Yeah.
I want to talk more about how fatherhood has changed you in just a moment here, Michael. So thank you again for being here.
It is love.
Be inspired. First, we want to recognize Photo Center in Brick, family owned and operated since 1977. Photo Center carries a full line of digital cameras, camera accessories, and hosts photo classes and workshops. For more info on Photo Center in Brick, it's available by going to photocenter.com. Also, thanks to Chain Gang Pro Performance Clothing, a new local company focused on providing activewear for your active moments. Check out their story and line of products at chaingangpro.com or follow their journey on Instagram or Facebook by searching Chain Gang Pro. Be Inspired would also like to thank our sponsor, Mike Obertlich from Keller Williams in Shrewsbury. Mike Obertlich services Monmouth and Ocean County, so if you plan on moving to Monmouth County, you got to go to Mo. You can list or sell your home by calling Mike Obertlich at 908-216-0551. Hashtag gotta go to Mo, a realtor you grow to love. Michael Skudera is with us here this time around on Be Inspired. What a life, and talk about somebody, it's almost like a buffet table, a wrestler, you work at a hospital, you're a dad, you ran for office, so many things that you've done. Did fatherhood change you? Because here you are, a tough guy, you're wrestling and you're doing your thing there, and all of a sudden along comes this little person that now you're responsible for day in and day out. It really is life-changing, isn't it?
It's life-changing. I was always that guy that, would say, why do they have that goofy sign in the car window that says baby on board? Who cares? Well, I was that guy when we brought Ezra home.
You cared,
I
sure.
was 10 miles an hour on Route 18 going home, and I was the guy with the hazards on, and, I had this precious cargo. I was the first person to hold him. And I think from that point on, we've just had this amazing bond. He definitely is. He's 14 now. He's my best friend, my absolute best friend. Somebody he'll never judge you for anything. He'll give you a hug when you need a hug. He has great intuition. He's a good kid.
How special.
Yeah, I bet he feels the same about you.
I hope so.
There was a period of time, Michael, after the election when you wound up, losing by, well, actually you won, and then they did a recount, and then you happened to lose by only 27 votes, and your son and yourself, you were very upset about that. And you said you went through a period of time where you were extremely depressed, and you withdrew, and you were very nasty to those around you.
Yeah, politics definitely changed me for a period of time. I didn't want to be social anymore. I was embarrassed. Because I took great pride in running a nice, clean, fair, nice election, and I felt the results weren't what it should have been, and I took it out on my friends and I took it out on my family, and it took one of my friends to say, "What are you doing? This isn't who you are." Yeah. I kind of snapped out of it at that point. I feel a lot better. Depression is something that a lot of people suffer with, and
a lot.
And I think for men especially, there's a stigma, with having depression. My son, I had joint custody of my son, and then my ex-wife remarried and had another child, and they relocated to Detroit. And for that 1 year, I was in rough shape. This was about 2 years ago, struggling with depression and had really bad anxiety. Didn't go out. I gained 50 pounds. And then one day I just said, I've had enough. I need help. And I checked myself into a hospital.
Wow.
And I said, my son deserves better than the father he's having right now. Wow. And then over the course of the next year through weekly therapy, and I found out a lot of things about myself that I didn't necessarily know, and things in my past that have affected me, as an adult. So
I always find that the most empathetic people feel the most. In other words, you probably took everything that happened as having to do with you.
Yes, it was personal.
Yes,
Yeah.
you took everything personally.
Yeah.
The election you lost was personal. The fact that your son wasn't with you is personal. The whole career thing. So, yeah, you take it. It's something that happens to you in life.
Right.
But it is not your life, and
Right.
it's not who you are.
Right.
Yeah, well,
Right.
good for you for asking for help.
Yeah, it's it was embarrassing at first because you never want to go to a hospital and say I need help.
Yeah.
But it's something that I had to do for my own self and for my son.
Bert, it's sad. We talk to so many people whose stories are similar, and in this day and age, how sad is it that men still feel, and I'm sure women as well, but that it's embarrassing to ask for help, and that there's still that stigma.
It's one of the many things, Lisa, we call it the bro code. And there's certain things that just kind of stay between guys. Yeah. And one of them is you never want to appear weak or vulnerable. No matter how things are going in your life, no matter how bad things are, You got to be the tough guy. You got to have the hard exterior because you don't want to appear soft or weak, or heaven forbid you were emotional around people. So it's something that I hope is going to change going forward. That's
I hope
for sure.
So too.
As we wrap up, Michael, and it was great having you with us here today.
Very good.
Dinner guests, any three people, one living, one dead, one fictional. If you could have
Who would I want to have dinner with?
Yeah.
Wow.
Political hero. Why don't we start there from the political world?
Well, from the political world, Barack Obama would definitely be one that I would want to sit down with.
Okay. A wrestler?
Ric Flair. I've met him numerous times. I have an 8x10 of him and me on my wall at home, so he's part of my family in my mind.
Let me guess, your son is the third person, right?
My son,
no question.
Eating with him is not easy because he's 14, he's 6'3" and 185 pounds.
Wow.
So,
What's his name?
Ezra.
Ezra.
Yes.
All right. Hi, Ezra.
Good luck with that. Michael Skudera, thank you for joining us on Be Inspired, and you're truly an inspirational guy. Just a couple final words of inspiration for people. I mean, everything you've done, you've succeeded at. You know what? To run for office is a win.
Yeah.
To pursue pro wrestling is a win. You've been a winner your whole life. Just some brief inspirational words.
You never know who's watching. You never know if it's your child or your neighbor or your mom or your cousin or just a friend or some stranger. What you do can affect them deeply.
That's right. Lisa, we got to go through life like the mic and the lights are on every minute, right?
Yes, we
have
do.
to.
You never know who's watching or listening.
You're right. Michael,
Yeah,
thank
we
you again
do.
for joining us.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
I'm Bert Baron,
And I'm Lisa Anderson.
and thank you for joining us on Be Inspired. Hosted by Lisa Anderson and Bert Baron. Director of Production, Rod Weber. Executive Producers, Rod Weber and Sean M. Sternberg. Creator and Executive Producer, Michael R. Doyle. Also thanks to Chain Gang Pro Performance Clothing, Michael Obertlich from Keller Williams, and the Photo Center in Brick.